Hello, and welcome to today's discussion in our series, Recover Your Strategy. Today's topic, why should I use a strategy planning tool? My name is Nellie Miller, and I'm the Director of Marketing at MPOWR. Thanks for being with us today. Just a few housekeeping logistics up front. You're all on mute, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. Please use the chat box to the right panel, on the right panel of your screen, to ask us a question or provide a comment. We will get to those comments and questions near the end of our conversation today. You'll receive a recording after today's presentation, so you can review it again or maybe share it with a colleague who wasn't able to attend. We also have future virtual discussions coming up in our next series, which I'll share more about in just a bit. So as we all continue to work towards moving forward from the pandemic, we've dedicated our Recover Your Strategy digital series to helpful topics for you and your organization to use now to recover your strategy and planning. So to kick off our discussion today, I'll be talking with a great panel of people, and I would love to introduce them right now. So to start off, we have Jeff Fahrenwald, VP of Strategy Execution at SupplyCorps, and SupplyCorps is MPOWR's parent company. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Nellie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Great. Could you give our audience a little overview of what SupplyCorps does?
Sure. Well, SupplyCorps is we have a multiple of different companies that we have. One, of course, being the software division, MPOWR. We have a real estate division. We have a retail division. And then our largest division is a distribution and logistics organization that works closely with the Department of Defense to supply MRO, maintenance, repair, and operations products to military bases.
Great. Well, thank you. Also joining us is Marty Imper from attackpoverty. She's the Director of Internal Operations. Hi, Marty.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. I would love for you to give a little bit of information about attackpoverty and what you do.
Sure. attackpoverty is a global organization that serves locally to break the cycle of generational poverty. We adopt pockets of poverty and launch what we call Friends of communities, where through collaborative partnerships and long-term commitments, we work to awaken the potential of individuals, empowering them to attack poverty in their life and their community. We strengthen these under-resourced communities through spiritual growth, education, revitalization, and basic needs, using a holistic approach to community development. So for us, it's about development, not charity. It's a hand up, not a hand out. We do have 10 locations, 6 in the US, 4, 2 in Uganda, 2 in Asia, and 2 social enterprises, and a disaster recovery department, which has been very busy in the last few years.
Yeah, I can imagine so, and thank you for that. And we've really enjoyed getting to know you and your organization as you're a client of MPOWR. So thank you for being here today. Also joining us is Lauren Zerey, our Manager of Strategic Support at SupplyCorps. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Nellie.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
And we also have Lindsay Green, which some of you may know as our Customer Success Manager. She interfaces with all of our customers, and she has herself been on several webinars and videos for the work that we do. So Lindsay, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Thank you. You see me on the screen, as well as Brittany Ray, our fabulous producer, who's making sure everything is working behind the scenes. So thank you, Brittany. And thank you all for being here. So as we make our plans right now, we sometimes think we've got everything covered, and we love this slide because, you know, we look at that first part and think we've got this plan and there's not going to be any surprises, right? Right, guys? No surprises. But we know that's not always the case, especially this year. So reality takes over, and all of a sudden we need to shift and react to circumstances outside of our control. So what do you do? And how do you manage your plans when you thought you had everything figured out? At MPOWR, we believe that technology can and should help. In fact, our strategy planning and execution software called MPOWR Envision can facilitate organizational agility, foster communication, align strategies across an organization, increase goal achievement, and improve outcomes. Ultimately, a strategy planning tool like MPOWR Envision can help you adapt your plans and measure outcomes when reality takes over. So I'm going to invite our panel to answer some questions that I have prepared, but we also want to include our audience. So please remember to type in your questions to the right-hand side panel, and we'll include your questions in this conversation. So to kick us off, Jeff, I'd love to start with you. You and Lauren worked together to make SupplyCorps and all of our sister companies work toward developing strategy and executing it. So how do you make strategy and planning become a daily function of a company?
Well, I can tell you it's not easy, but it's possible, and it's possible first off if there's support at the top, and that the senior most people in your organization all of a sudden understand that there's a need for that. And then the second thing is that I also believe that there has to be a way to provide visibility. And again, for us, we developed internally the tool MPOWR Envision. We've been using it for a number of years so that what we would be able to do is to provide visibility into the plan for everybody in the organization so that people can see the plan, they can work on the plan, and they can communicate what's going on with the plan collectively as we're moving. So you got to have support from the top so that people know they have to use it, and then you have to be able to provide ways that there's transparency to everybody.
And your work is never done. I think someone was just trying to get a hold of you for strategy right now. I would say this too, we're thankful to have your position. It does come from the top, and certainly our president and CEO is very focused on that type of work. But beyond just developing the strategy, how can organizations really actually execute it?
Well, again, execution is living your strategy every day. It's understanding that that part of your work is working on the organization, not in the organization. And too many times people spend their time working in the organization, so they get a lot of small tasks done, but they're not really looking at where their organization is trying to go long term.
We were just having a conversation internally about that the other day, so I think that's such a crucial point. So thanks for bringing that up. Lindsay, I'd love to turn to you. In your role, I know you work with different types of organizations in a variety of industries. So what do you think organizations struggle with most when they try to execute their strategy and their plans, but they don't have a strategy planning tool?
Well, if they have a plan, I think, even if it's something that, maybe is out 2 to 5 years, trying to look at that on a level that you can kind of chip off, quarter by quarter. So looking at it a little bit more on a smaller scale, even if you started with that and putting that into the software and Envision, it just gives you a starting point to say, okay, this is what I hope my next 3 to 6 months looks like. And then taking that strategy, and it's just going to naturally grow. If you didn't have Envision, I mean, from customers that I've talked to in the past, they're using Excel sheets, they're using Word documents, a Trello board. That's great for everyday tasks, but when you're trying to align your team and have that transparent communication, having a tool like Envision where you can have your goals and initiatives tied to your overall vision and mission and get everyone working together, see what everyone else is working on, look at those progress notes, and you're just getting that alignment within your team and having that visibility. So it's cutting down on your emails and your phone calls and things like that. So it's just something to get that collaboration together, and then you don't have to have a Trello board or a checklist and continually check in with your teammates. It's something that is just natural. You have an update, you get into the software, you're putting your updates in so everyone can see it. So it's just the collaboration piece that's key.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really great point, Lindsay. People get kind of paralyzed by maybe they don't have a plan or maybe they don't know where to start, but just to start with something small, and those short-term goals certainly make sense, and then to build into a longer strategy. You also mentioned tying your strategy to your mission, vision, and values. So Jeff, I'd love to return to you and talk about the importance of tying your strategy to your mission, vision, and values and why that's so crucial.
So, if you think about it, if you just get in your car and you say, well, I want to go somewhere, you can drive anywhere in any direction, and maybe you'll get somewhere, But on the other end of the coin, if you think about it and you say, I'm located in Rockford, Illinois right now, I want to drive to New Orleans, all right, or I want to go to New Orleans, let's say. Now you've got you've got your mission where you're at right now, you got your vision where you want to go, and then you're going to have to define your values in there, which is, I want to do this in a way that's energy efficient, and maybe you ride a bike, or you say, I want to do it the fastest way I could possibly go, and then you're going to want to be able to fly, let's say. In other words, your values are the lanes or what's keeping you within and lets you know what you will or won't compromise to be able to meet your vision. And I think for everybody in an organization, it's important to know where they're at. It's important to know where they're trying to go. And it's important for people to understand, especially as you move up and down the organization, the lanes that they have, what the organization stands for, what the organization won't compromise, what's vital for them to have to be done.
I think that's a really great analogy that you just gave, and those lanes or those boundaries are very helpful, right, in keeping people focused.
Sure.
So we want to pause right now and poll all of you, our audience, and just we're curious to know how you tie your work to your mission. So I'm going to ask Brittany. Thank you, Brittany, for bringing up our poll. So are people at your organization able to see the connection with your mission and their daily work? And I'm going to turn it over to Brittany as we wait to get some of our responses.
Yes, thank you so much, Nellie. We have some responses coming in right now. So we'll just give it another minute or so. Go ahead and fill out yes, no, or not sure. I'll give it just one more minute here. And some really good responses here. So we have, I'll go ahead and just give it one more second here just in case somebody wants to fill something out, and then I'll go ahead and share it with the group so you guys can see.
Okay.
All right, so it looks like a majority are saying yes, but then we also have a big group that's saying not sure.
Anybody surprised by those, or any reactions from our panel?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to look at that, I would say, I mean, a way to test this, if you're not sure, is to literally go to people in your organization and ask them what they're doing or what they've been doing today to help them help your organization accomplish its mission and vision. And a lot of times you'll get a blank stare. And even the people that said yes, I would challenge you to do that and go and ask people, what are you working on today that's helping you reach our mission and vision? And you may be surprised that some of the people you thought would say yes really aren't that sure.
Great. Well, thank you, Jeff, and thank you to our audience for your answers. Marty, I'd love to turn to you. We're talking about mission, and I know you have recently focused your attention at Attack Poverty in regards to your mission. So how have you been able to do this type of work on your mission using a strategy planning tool?
Well, developing the plan using Envision has really helped us to be a little more thoughtful about how each segment contributes to that vision of Attack Poverty, while avoiding mission drift, which in the nonprofit world, that could be pretty significant. We have multiple locations throughout the US, Africa, Asia, social enterprises, and whatnot. So staying on mission can be a challenge. We have collaborative partnerships, and if we're not being intentional with our strategy, it can be really easy to stray from that mission. Using the strategy planning software really keeps our mission goals front and center, so everybody knows where we're going and how we're going to get there. The strategic overview, that color wheel, is a favorite of our senior leadership team because you can really, in one view, just see what the health of the whole organization is and easily identify those areas that need correction.
We love that feature as well, and I think I've got a couple other questions about it here in just a bit for some other panelists, but thank you for sharing that, and you do so much, so we can understand why the visibility of what you're doing and making sure it ties to your mission is crucial, so thank you for sharing that. Lauren, I'd love to ask you a question now. In our last virtual conversation, our colleagues discussed the idea that you can't implement technology if you don't have the right people and processes in place. You're just not going to be successful. So when we talk about using technology like our strategy planning software, how do you go about defining the right roles and responsibilities to ensure successful adoption and use, that people actually use the software?
Sure, great question. So as Jeff mentioned earlier, it really starts at the top with the leadership of the organization. It's kind of up to them to be the champions of using that technology and driving it down through their organization. If they're not using it, chances are that other levels of the organization probably won't adopt it either. But I believe it's also important to have an administrator of that technology, and not just because that's part of my role at Supply Corps, But to have someone bird dogging that system, making sure that the flow of information is running, that people are using the tool correctly, and to be kind of that one-stop shop for answering all questions quickly so that you can help drive that user adoption. If you have questions about what types of roles you should have in your organization or want help defining those types of responsibilities, Lindsay is a great resource to reach out to.
She is. We're lucky to have her, and we're lucky to have you on the SupplyCorps side and with our other brands, because it really does take that champion. And I think you are in that role for sure, and helping make sure people, are using it and comfortable, and just helping us through our strategy. So, Lauren, when we use MPOWR Envision, we often say it helps us, communicate, align, and create transparency within our company and our brands. How does that communication piece really drive collaboration between departments and then across our entire company?
Sure. We get communication from Envision a couple of different ways at SupplyCorps. So one is the digest summary report that you can set up in your user settings. That comes out however often you want it to, which summarizes any new tactics or actions that are created, and then any new progress notes that are created within that certain time frame that you set up. SupplyCorps is also currently integrated with Slack, so we get those near real-time notifications that progress notes and plans or actions are being added as well. This is important because it means you're not waiting for that next meeting to get updates on certain items. You can get that directly from what people are saying in Envision. That way, those meetings that you're going to can have a deeper discussion on topics if needed. It also helps to reduce communication gaps between departments. For example, our continuous improvement department identifies a gap where we need a new software. They put it into Envision, and our IT department sees that in a progress note. The IT department can then reach out to continuous improvement and get more information that they need to upfront. They're not waiting to hear further down the line that a project need is coming when it's already in motion. So they're getting that notification upfront.
In the marketing communication field, I can say that the communication piece is one of my favorite features and benefits of our software for sure. And so beyond the communication and the collaboration, how do you keep people accountable?
Sure, great question. As Jeff said, that's one of the harder things to do as well, but with Envision, it's a little bit easier. So the accountability piece, owners of items they're able to set their own target dates, how often they want to update that item with a progress note, the health color. They will get email notifications if they're past their target dates to go in and update that specific item. And then update their health colors as well. They'll get then that health color goes back into the starburst chart that Marty was talking about earlier, and you can see in one spot that the color of your plan is majority red. So you have some identified items to focus on.
And sometimes people may color it a certain way. We've got the green, yellow, red indicators, and there may be some conversation about that because some people have different perspectives on that. So having conversations about the health of a plan, action, or objective is really important.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you for that. So Marty, let's talk about your organization again as we learn more about attack poverty. At SupplyCorps and MPOWR, we've been using this kind of software for quite some time, but attack poverty is fairly new to using this kind of software. So tell us how you initially focused your plan in MPOWR Envision and how it's changed in the last year.
Sure. We've been using Envision just a little over a year now, and at first we created the strategic plan to only be about program operations, and it was very detailed. Over this last year, we've had several staff changes and programmatic adjustments, and having that strategic plan has been very helpful in getting through those transitions. By using the software, we're able to reassign those portion of those tasks or that plan to a new team member who can pretty much just pick up the ball and keep going, even when COVID pandemic hit, it really affected everybody, and we had to halt all of our regular programs and turn our locations into distribution centers within just a couple of days.
Wow.
So we were able to make those modifications and redirect our focus to distributing food and supplies to those under-resourced communities that we serve. Those changes would be visible to the whole organization so that everybody would be on the same page, know who's doing what. And to date, we've served almost 250,000 individuals just through that program alone, which is really amazing. We've learned a lot. We like to say we're a learning organization. Recently, we've learned a lot about CSFs and KPIs, and we're really trying to understand that what they should be and how they should work in your organization. What we found is that ours really needed some updating. We had like our CSFs were all program-based. We didn't have any for our organization, and that's changing now. The KPIs that we had also were, again, program-specific. Now with the new feature of that KPI, especially that calculation feature, it'll help us do a better job of measuring our impact by tracking those outcomes and not just the outputs. Yeah, it's really, we've even been able to see our strategic plan through this platform, really allowing us to make modifications to do a better job of aligning our mission and vision and core values to the organizational CSFs, and those would reflect the core values. So it's been extremely helpful, and I learn something new every day.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your strategy journey with us. We never are done with that journey, are we?
No.
And it sounds like our software was able to help you make those quick shifts very quickly. And you've become more strategic, it sounds like. So we're happy to hear that for sure. Jeff, there's a common myth about strategic planning. Many people think that once a plan is created, it's in stone. You got to stick to what you said you were going to do. And as we know from that earlier slide, reality can take over and things outside of our control happen. So is strategic planning, is a strategy plan really that static, in your opinion?
Well, unfortunately, with too many organizations, it is. And I think that's the real problem that a lot of organizations have. Again, going back to, earlier on, people, maybe do the plan themselves or bring in someone else and help them write a plan, and then they stick it on a shelf. And then they pull it out 3 months later, or 6 months later, or a year later, and then try to scramble to figure out what they did. And what they've figured out is they may be pointing in the wrong direction. The world changes rapidly right now. Some people argue that, planning is obsolete because things change so much. My argument is that planning isn't obsolete at all, but you need to learn to plan to be flexible. And again, when you have a tool like Marty described and gave the examples of, you can change and adapt that plan, and people can see that that's happening in near real time. And I think that's so important. And again, it's unfortunate, but a lot of companies, they make a plan, and then come, heck or high water, they're going to try to reach that plan. And it would be, again, going back on the sticking with taking a driving trip somewhere where you're going along and you see something that's really cool, and you look at your watch and say, well, we don't have time to go see that because I've got to be at this place for some other reason. And the place you end up is really not that interesting, and you miss the great opportunity that you could have been able to have. So, I mean, it's a balance, because you can't detour on everything that's out there. But at the same time, you have to be flexible, and you have to realize, as the world changes, as the economy changes, as crises happen, you have to be able to adapt. What you usually don't adapt is your values, because they keep you in the lanes. But the other things, you have to be able to adapt some.
Yeah, great. Well, that's great to have that distinction between what you can think about changing and what really you can't. Lindsay, I've got a couple questions for you. Certainly now in this challenging time, companies are looking to measure and prioritize. So how can companies measure performance in different ways with our software?
So something that is fairly new to Envision is we've always had key performance indicators or ways of measuring things in your plan, but it's really been enhanced in 2020. Our product team has done a really great job listening to our customers and seeing what they want in Envision, talking to our executive leadership, not only from Supply Core, but within MPOWR, to see what is really going to be relevant for these customers. And something that is new is having key performance indicators on a plan level, and then also having that differentiation between a plan KPI and a global KPI. So what we mean by that is the existing KPIs that we've had have always kind of been overarching metrics that don't really play into the overall health of your plan. Today, now, when I talk about plan KPIs, they live on the tactic and action level. So for instance, in my role in customer success, I may have a plan KPI that measures my response time for customer service service tickets, my response time, making sure that our customers are answered in a timely manner. So that is something that's important to my role, wanting to make sure that I have meeting those SLAs and things like that. But when we're talking about maybe a global KPI, those are again more mission focused. They're what your executive leadership team, when they're having their meetings together, maybe they're looking at sales metrics or quote turnaround times. So looking at metrics on a higher level, again, aligning those with your mission, and then asking yourself when you're having those meetings, are what we're tracking, are they relevant? Are they giving us the information that we need to grow and continue to get information out of the KPIs that we're currently measuring? If you're not getting relevant information out of it, then you're not tracking the right things.
Yeah.
And another thing too, when having global and planned KPIs, I myself, I have a global KPI because of course, we want to see different sales metrics and things like that. So I can have different things that the executive leadership, is interested. They're also, certainly interested that I'm making sure that our customers are happy. So just having that differentiation of KPIs. But another thing to think about too is using Envision to drive your meetings. And I think that's really important because, as Jeff said earlier, making sure that you're kind of intertwining your strategy in your everyday, using it for your meetings to drive your meetings. We've got a really cool widget that you can put on your dashboard for your strategy health. And it's something I actually just had a customer call this morning, and we were talking about how it's different to have a dashboard for an executive leadership member compared to maybe middle management or associates, what that looks like. So seeing that strategy health widget, it's a pie chart and you can drill right down into it and see, okay, I've got 9% of my plan is critical. Use that to drive your meetings. What needs attention, what needs additional resources. Maybe you need to allocate your budget a little bit differently, but then also look at those green and yellow things, look at what's going right, celebrate those things. So using that to drive your meetings. Also another thing that we use Envision for is like our monthly one-on-ones with our management. So we're constantly referencing our plan and Envision. Again, are we tracking the right things? Do we need to pivot and shift at all in our strategy, which certainly has happened. So I think you just using Envision and using it in your everyday to get that quick information is something that you can get a lot of information out of Envision. If you're making sure that you're updating it and everyone is collaborating on it, I can't stress the collaboration enough.
Yeah, I think you said a lot in that answer, so
Yeah.
thank you so much. And I think the difference between the global KPIs, the plan KPIs, but the custom dashboards, people, as we say, see their work. And so leadership can be looking at certain things that they need to look at, but then other folks can be looking at their work and how it ties to everything in the overall goals. You mentioned a feature that we love to talk about, our sunburst, kind of the health of a plan. So, because sometimes leadership can't take the time to look through every KPI and see, even if there's global KPIs, so the sunburst can really help them understand the overall health. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so when if you have any plan KPIs and you're entering data points, say on a monthly basis for that specific plan KPI, when you initially set up that key performance indicator, you're setting up various parameters and saying, okay, if I'm measuring response time, for example, I want to make sure that between 98% and 100% is green. That is what I consider green, that I want to make sure my customers are answered by. So you're setting those threshold parameters, and then based on your data points that you're entering each month, it's going to calculate the health and then tie and feed up to those parent items so they can see the overall health of the plan in that sunburst. So it's just a really good indicator to kind of see that high level view of all of the different segments within your organization and how they're doing and how they're comparing to each other. And again, making sure that you are tracking the right things.
I know, Marty, you mentioned it was a favorite feature of your team, which is great to hear. Yeah. And Jeff, I know you and our leadership team are looking at the sunburst all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So Marty, looking ahead, how will Attack Poverty continue to use a strategy planning software? And what features are you excited to implement in the months ahead?
Yeah, this year we're adding another strategic plan that goes beyond our program ops and including development, human resources, and finance. We will still have a program ops plan, and it'll be a little more detailed, but not quite like it was last year. Our goal is to make it broader and let each team member add as many tactics or action items as they feel are necessary. Since they're the ones who will be doing them, I think that would be a better approach for us. I'm super excited about the KPI feature. Like I said before, I just can't brag on it enough because it's really going to make my job a lot easier. It's a real game changer for us because not only that, it'll be a true indication of how everyone is doing using the advanced calculation and then like being able to tie them into those tactics and objectives will really give us a true indication of the health. It will no longer be subjective. You can't say, well, I think I'm doing great. It'll be completely objective because we've had that happen. You look at it and you're like, no, that can't be right. But now, you're being held accountable because they're being tied to specific performance measures. And I think that besides, holding everybody accountable, more importantly, it's going to allow us to be completely transparent.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany now and see if we have any questions from our audience.
Thank you so much, Nellie. It does look like we have a question for Marty. And Marty, I know you touched on this subject already, but how does Attack Poverty use MPOWR Envision daily?
That's our goal for this year. Last year, like I said, we had a lot of staff changes, a lot of changes going on, and that's actually something that we learned. Too much detail and too much change is overwhelming for some people, and so we had been using it more like on a monthly basis rather than a daily, but now with the way we're going to structure it this year, I think it really lends itself to being more of a daily, weekly tool that everybody can use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marty. It is really interesting how people, they can do it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Different organizations definitely run differently. So great feedback. My next question is for Jeff. Can you use different strategy methodologies in MPOWR Envision?
Absolutely. As long as what you have is some sort of a plan that has a hierarchical structure. We're kind of agnostic to the type of tools. And a lot of times what happens is people want to use a balanced scorecard, or they want to be doing something, through blue ocean strategies or other sorts of things. And no matter what it is you're using or philosophically how you start with planning, as long as there's a hierarchy of the plan where you have, mission, vision, and then you have kind of overarching goals and then sub goals and then plans and actions or tasks under that, this sort of software will work very well. And I think that's one of the things that's key is that, our software is flexible. It also is even flexible to the point where anything that we call something, we may call something a objective. And in your organization, you may call that a purpose, I don't know. And then, you can change the name to that if you want to. All the labels in the system are able to change so that we can adapt to any sort of a strategy or system that you're used to using. And I think that's important because in order to adopt a strategy, it has to be your own. And if it feels to somebody like somebody else's, then they're not going to use it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of feedback from customers that, have said that that's a really important feature to them, so it fits with their organization and their lingo and what they use on a daily basis. So, and I think it's important to note too that, even with Marty, when her strategy kind of shifted and changed it's not like that old work that you did is bad, you can archive that, and it's not that it's not useful. You can archive that in the system, still have access to that, still have access to the progress notes and attachments, so you can go back. And as Marty said, so if you have you know, people that change in your organization, they can kind of go back and see the history of what has been done, and so they're not kind of losing time. They can go back and see what has already been done, or what you know, steps have already been taken, and then kind of pick off from there, and develop their own way for that specific part of the plan.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. Looks like one just got put in, and I will direct this one to Lauren. Lauren, how is this different than, like, say, a project management software?
Sure, great question. So project management software is, I believe it was Lindsay was kind of describing as, it's very task oriented. So maybe that's a better use of a tool for managing your daily tasks. But for Envision, that's how you're going to see how those tasks flow up and through your strategy. So it goes down to the strategically tactical level, but not down to those, hey, I need to make a phone call today.
Yeah, I think it's important to think about that. You know, project management is you're working in your business. You've got a specific project that you're doing, but your organization may have 20, 30 projects that they're working on. Our software, you're working on your business, and it can give you visibility to literally into all the types of projects that are going on. So you see at a higher level how everything coordinates and fits together.
And I've had it used too, Jeff, to that point, you know, seeing the transparency of it. We've worked with customers before that were trying to be acquired by, you know, different companies, or trying to grow their business and things like that. And having that visibility, and having the different charts and things that are available as far as data, and just having those you know, things that you can link out to potential stakeholders and things like that. Having that transparency for that is something that you can use Envision to you know, become appealing to you know, companies that you're being, you know, trying to be acquired by. So there's several different, you know, avenues to use Envision for.
Sure, not to speak or brag on SupplyCore anymore, but just for a little bit to give a little bit more history. You know, SupplyCore has made the Inc. 500 list 5 times as one of the fastest growing companies in the country, and then 4 times we made the Inc. 5000 list as one of the fastest growing companies in the country. We wouldn't have been able to achieve all that without some sort of a software that would have helped us work and coordinate together. Because when you're growing really fast or things are changing really quickly, you don't have time to sit in meetings for hours and pull reports together and dust off all those binders. You've got to execute on the run, and this software allowed us to do that, and it really made a difference. And so we would not have been in the place we're in right now today without something like this to help us get there.
Thank you so much, guys. We do have one more question, and our last question I will ask, and I will direct this one towards Marty. Marty, what would you say is the top benefit of an organization using a strategy tool?
Probably the biggest perk would be that everybody could be on the same page, and everybody feels they're part of an organization. A lot of times when you have strategic planning meetings, it's all upper management. A lot of times people at the bottom don't know what's really going on or what's the plan for the future. With this tool, you can see what that is. You have a say-so, you're working in it every day, you can see what you're doing is contributing to that. So I think it's a very helpful tool. I'd like to mention that I really love the team there. They put up with me a lot. I have a lot of suggestions. Thank you for implementing some of those, but yeah, and this is completely new to us. And so they've just been so flexible in being able to get on a Zoom call and explain things and walk through things. And so it's been really great. I would recommend it. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in our organization who doesn't really just think it's the best thing.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Marty. That's super nice of you, and it's a pleasure working with you. And I'll turn it over to Nellie.
Yes, I echo our thank you, Marty. We enjoy working with you and your team too. So thank you to our audience for those great questions. I had one final question for our panel. Planning is all about learning. And I know, Marty, you mentioned that previously, that you guys are continually learning. So what is one lesson you can share with our audience that you've learned through planning and executing strategy? And Marty, I'll start with you.
I think we can all agree that planning is a lot easier than execution.
Absolutely.
People are naturally resistant to change, and especially when your organization is constantly growing and learning and changing the way things are being done. While on the one hand, you have to come up with, standard operating procedures in place to support that growth, too many changes at once can overwhelm your staff. So what I've really learned is that while detail is good, the simpler you can make it for those using it, the more likely your team will actually implement it and use it. The best we can do is to strive and get the right people in the right position who are, open to adapting to change and really establishing good communication and provide lots and lots of training.
Great, well, thank you for that. Lauren, I'll ask you the question about your lesson.
Sure. My lesson is how important communication, alignment, and transparency are. If you don't have a tool like Envision, you definitely could be missing out on some relevant information unless you're attending every single company meeting like Jeff had mentioned. That's just not possible. Without Envision, it's easy to imagine the ball getting dropped or the process breaking down because you wouldn't be getting all of those near real-time updates that allow you to act and react quickly and shift your course if you need to.
Great, well, thank you. I would agree. I mean, meetings are good, but there's so many times where we could have a quick check-in or get some information and not even have a meeting. So that's a great answer. Lindsay, what is your lesson?
My biggest lesson, probably just using Envision over the past several months, is getting just a rhythm down of, putting your progress notes in and just, again, making it become part of your everyday, and I think, too, I think we've all kind of struggled with that, like, oh gosh, I gotta get my, updates in. But really, when you think about it, when you're setting up your tactics and actions, you get the question, how often do I want to update this? And you really need to ask yourself that, what is feasible for me to update this? If I've got something that has a target date of 8 months away, setting a frequency to weekly is kind of counterintuitive because I might not have a weekly update, and that's okay. It's better to not have an update, and have it be a monthly update and it be a good update, than just, kind of have a half update. So making sure that those notifications that you're getting are on a basis that you can, put in a good progress note and make sure that it's worthy of your executive leadership reading, because it's true. As Lauren noted, we get a digest summary report, and it's really easy just in passing to scroll through it, get your quick update, or while you're making your coffee in the morning, scroll through it and just get those updates. So it's just kind of nice to always be in the know, but making sure that you are, getting those notifications, and they're kind of your call to action to get into the environment to put your updates in. So I would say just making sure that your frequencies are appropriate and set up correctly.
I think that's a great point. And again, it's that communication piece, and before you know it, you're thinking strategy almost, every day, because you're seeing what the company is doing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Jeff, we kicked off with you with our first question, so I'm going to end with you. How would you explain your lesson?
Well, I think the lesson that you could take away from what everybody has said, if you really listen to what people have been saying, is that a tool like Envision helps you to view planning as positive. I think in a lot of cases historically, I know for myself, because I used to have to go through those quarterly or biannual or annual meetings, planning was horrible. Because you'd do something, and then you'd have to go back and remember what you did over the last 6 months and drag all that stuff together and put it in spreadsheets and PowerPoints and everything. And then people would ask you the one question you didn't know, and it was horrible. Where planning should be something that everybody is focusing on and pulling together and working on. And if you listen to the comments of everybody in this group, people were talking about planning in a very positive way. It was helping the organization move forward. It was helping the organization succeed. And it's not meant to punish someone or to point out that someone's not doing their job. It's there to help everybody do their job. And I think that change of mindset is so important, because if people are looking at planning as a burden, and people are looking at planning as something they're going to get punished for, or then it's not going to be positive. So I think that the biggest lesson that I see through all this is that because you're communicating, because you're transparent, because you are working in your plans all the time, planning becomes positive and pulls the organization together. And because of that, you succeed in a much better way.
I think that's really well said. So thank you for that observation, Jeff. And it's a very powerful one. So we certainly appreciate it. So thank you to our panel for your great answers. As we've been discussing today, MPOWR Envision, our top-rated strategy planning and execution software, helps organizations strengthen communication, alignment, and transparency. In fact, MPOWR Envision is the software tool to help you and your team see results happen. So in an effort to help organizations recover as quickly as possible during these challenging times, we are offering our software free for new customers for their first 30 days. Use it to plan your reentry and recovery. Use it to help pivot or shift your strategy. We heard some great examples, not only from SupplyCorps, but certainly attackpoverty, how they've used it recently to make some important shifts. And if you need additional assistance in setting your strategy, take advantage of our limited time offer right now of a 40% discount off our fast strategy consulting. 3 goals in 3 months. Maybe you have a plan and you aren't sure if it's really a good one. Maybe you don't have a plan. We can help. So the service is led by our senior strategy executive, Andrea Gibbs. So 3 goals in 3 months can help you use laser focus to make some realistic goals happen in a single quarter. You can really cut through the noise and understand the specific goals you need to accomplish within the next 30 days. Finally, we have some really helpful resources on our website. We have blogs, guides, templates. So I invite you to check out mpowr.com. We have some blogs. One of note right now is how to prioritize your strategic objectives. Maybe there's a lot going on. So how do you think about prioritizing those? So I invite you to check that out. And I also mentioned in the beginning of today's conversation that we have a new digital series launching next month. Strategy Forward will kick off in a couple of weeks and will feature new topics to move your strategy and your organization forward, especially as we move through Q3 and Q4, when planning and strategy are so crucial for preparing to kick off the new year. So I want to thank our panelists today. It's been great talking to you. Thank you all for your thoughtful and helpful comments. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marty, for coming and joining us today. It was really nice to have you, and we of course love working with you, and we want more customers like you. So
you all brought some really great perspectives, so we really appreciate that. And we certainly thank our audience for those questions that you gave us and for joining us today. We appreciate your contributions. We'd love to keep this conversation going. We'd love to talk about strategy execution, and how to use technology. So please contact us via our website at mpowr.com if you have any additional comments or questions. So have a good rest of your day. Stay healthy and positive, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.